Mr. Ryan, how's it going?
Good, Mr. Worley. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to
About a
you.
week left until Christmas is coming. I hope you're in a cheerful mood.
I sure am, man. I got my cab here. I'm a red guy. Gonna open it. You have a drink
Very
there?
classy of you.
Yeah, man.
I got some
Ready?
spotted cow representing the wife's home state. You're not even spotted cow, actually. This is it Moon
The
Man?
Moon
Yeah,
Man.
it's Moon Man.
That's good stuff, man.
A new
How's
Glarus, so all the same, you can only get it in Wisconsin.
yeah, me and Pat and I think it was Turchy. We went to the brewery there for Spotted Cow. Really awesome, man. Just really cool. Like
It's a very remote area, isn't it? New
yeah,
Glarus, the
like
town?
it's Wisconsin, right? So it goes from like Milwaukee is like the most dense to like the sticks, but you might know better than
Right,
me.
right. Yeah, then it's all Dairyland.
Yeah, dude.
But I've heard great things. I've always wanted to check that out. So what's your favorite New Glarus beer?
So I brought home a couple different ones. There's like the triple, like whatever that means, like the doppel or whatever. I thought the standard Spotted Cow was my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
I've tried. Yeah, they have like an October one, Two Sisters. They have a bunch that I've never even tried. But yeah, they're solid. It's a little novelty, of course, because you can always only get it in Wisconsin. So
Yeah, I liked it. It was cool. It was a nice little tasting room and everything. And the
they
two
have like cheese curds there and everything for you.
oh man, you married a Wisconsinite. How's everything going? You're a new father.
It's been good. Not gonna lie, the first month, 6 weeks was exhausting. Like you can't prepare yourself for living on 2 hours of like 2 hour sleep intervals. So, you'll wake up every 2 hours and then try and calm the baby, of course, Kerry's feeding and, just waking up in and out of your REM cycles, of course, you can't really prepare for it. But besides the lack of sleep, everything's been great. Now she's sleeping like a champ, sleeping like 9 hours. So mom and dad are very happy. It's been an awesome experience, man. Just so cool to be a part of, watching someone from birth and being such a fundamental part of their life. So,
Yeah.
so far, yeah, it's been an amazing ride.
That's amazing, man. I can tell just how you're talking about it. It's just like so heartfelt. And, there's really probably no experience like it for any of us than to be parents.
Right.
Yeah.
It's truly, yeah. Once you can't prepare it, and when it comes, you just dive in. And if that time ever comes for you, Nick, I know you're gonna do great. But yeah, it's one of those things you can't study for it like a test. You just got to live by doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's way different than probably meeting a girl at the big city tap. No.
Yeah. Yeah, for all your listeners out there, my wife and I, we met at the famous classy joint called Big City Tap, better known as the Big Shitty, where it closes at 5 or 6 a.m. usually on most nights. So I think you might have been there, Nick, when we met. So you kind of had a role in bringing us together.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. I knew Kerry at IU. You were a year older than me.
Right.
You're already up here shipping hot loads. I was still back there partying at Smallwood,
Right.
Yeah, but I really appreciated and loved all those fun times that first year here in Chicago before I moved to Dallas. Man, we had a hell of a crew, like you, me, Brad, CJ, Kelsey Barrentine, Garrison,
Yeah, Daphnos. Yeah, I was
Daphnos.
very
Like,
solid. All single boys, just live in the big city.
yeah. So this is a podcast about motivation, like work styles. You're successful. You're someone that works for a big bank, you work for Chase. You have a law degree, and I just love how you've grinded all this time. Talking about logistics, I was frustrated about that my first couple of years. Like let's talk about that first year. Let's talk about how you and I were both working in carrier sales, customer sales, trying to find like freight, hitting the phone like 50 calls a day. Would be curious,
especially when you start with no leads. You're grinding that phone. There's really nothing like being thrown in that. Like you said, 50. I think when I first started, our quota was like when you had no clients, it was like 80 calls a day, which is just insane when you break it out mathematically.
Yeah, I was 50, but I thought that, sometimes it made more. And I thought that was a great thing. Looking back at it, I think I should have focused on the whales and tried to get the biggest spreads. I thought like, hey,
Right.
if I'm just busting my butt over here, they're going to notice. But end of the day, just like I've learned this about sales, you got to be closing business and you got to be making money for the company. So, yeah, my question there was just about what got you to the point from being successful at Echo, right? To saying, I want to go into law, right? I want to go off a cliff here
Right.
and get a law degree. What was that about? Did you think of other paths? Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I gained some awesome exposure via sales. There's nothing like that. Just the grind, the hustle, you need personality traits when you have your own book of business. There's a lot of ownership qualities. You have to be organized. You can have the best day ever, but it doesn't matter that following work day, you got to go in there and still work even harder than you did on your best day to be successful. So I learned a lot of great qualities with my first job, out of college. A lot of qualities that I didn't have before, coming fresh out of college that you can't gain in the classroom.
Mhm.
But as far as going to law school, it's something, having a legal background is something that I always thought about. And there's, not so much as the bright lights you see like Law and Order, the attorneys that are hustling in the courtroom, but more kind of the critical thinking skills that you can gain in law school and apply that no matter what you end up doing. I mean, you can be a successful psychologist with a law degree. You can be a successful CEO with a law degree. There's various paths, and just having that, getting that critical thinking and, skills that I couldn't gain it, at my sales job, certainly, but really couldn't gain it anywhere but in law school, always appealed to me. And really it was more timing. I wanted to, at least work for a year or two. I ended up only working for a year. It's that balance, right? You want to, coming out of college, you want to start making some money, but the longer you wait to go to graduate school, the harder it is. So it was that balance. So I started, I took the LSAT while I was working, started touring some law schools. Luckily Chicago, great legal market, great law schools here. So I ended up going to Loyola University of Chicago. Ramblers, have a place in my heart always now.
The Ramblers.
Just really that training myself to, the reasoning that I couldn't gain anywhere else was a big factor. And I didn't really know going in if I wanted to be, someone who was working every day in a courtroom as a litigator. If I wanted to do what I'm doing now, I ended up doing more transactional work where it's, more corporate reviewing contracts, negotiating contracts, not the glamorous stuff that I think most non-lawyers would, think of when you're talking about being a lawyer. I'm not in front of a judge, at all. But, that I didn't go in there with kind of I didn't go in there with this set path, but I knew I wanted to go and gain those skills that I only could gain in law school.
Yeah. So a couple of things stand out. You said that you were studying for the LSAT when you were at Echo doing logistics.
Correct.
Right? Man, like I remember how tired I was after making 80 calls a day. Man, props to you for just hitting the books after that, right?
Yeah, especially it's hard when, you're dragging me out too to the bars and stuff. You really have to grind and set aside time at night, even though, you're right, you're exhausted. Or like cut time away on the weekends to just solely focus on it.
Yeah. When you were in law school and you were here in Chicago going to Loyola, was there one or two maybe hints of the kind of work you wanted to do with the degree once you got it? How do you decide?
Yeah, so great question. One of the things I worked with at Loyola, we had a business law clinic, and mainly it helped sole proprietorship. So just individuals starting their own business and nonprofits. So I got a lot of experience with that, with the more transactional side, the more corporate side of things of setting up, corporate, or most of the time it was just setting up, LLCs, looking at operating agreements, things like that. And that really interested me, seeing kind of, okay, these were, people that were so aspired, whether for a nonprofit or just to set up their own business, and being able to help them achieve those goals by making sure, they had all the right legal filings in place with the state, that they had the right entity structure. It was very cool. And then another thing I did, and you may remember this too, I actually got to compete. So I took a class. It was an international commercial arbitration class. So it was based off of international contract, like international sale of good contract law. And it was countries around the world competed. And so I got the chance. So there's tryouts and stuff for it. 4 people, so myself and 3 others, got to compete in Shanghai and Hong Kong, and 4 others got to go compete in Vienna in Austria. So I, got chosen to go compete for the Hong Kong and Shanghai team, and it was a really cool experience, really digging in to the finer points of these international sale of goods principles, along with, arbitration. That really piqued my interest in more kind of the contract law side of things.
Yeah, that's cool. Like just the path that one might take. I remember when I got my first job out of school, like I told the story of how when I was in Spain, I taught English classes because I ran out of money and I needed to, right? Like when you do something that's out of the box of just going to class and you tell a story, or you have experiences outside of like the normal like path, people love to hear that. And I'm sure you told those stories to Chase in the interview. No?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. There's got to be some motivation, I think, that drives you to your final path, whatever it is, or maybe not your final path, but the career path that you enjoy the most. And you really start looking back on that the more you've been in your role.
Yeah. I mean, with what I do at Microsoft, I do enterprise sales, and it's so different than pounding the phone and like begging someone for $1,500 for their load of butter, right? Then you're going to move for $1,200, and you're going to keep a $300 spread, right? Like that's so transactional, and that is super important because we all wouldn't be having butter without that. But I knew that in that moment I had to shift. I had to use my creativity, my ability to use language, like you said, like critical thinking. All those skills I felt like I could do that to a point, but I was very much at that ceiling. And, do I want to stay in logistics for 5 years and build a team and, move up in this company? Or do I want to just pivot? And that's kind of why I pivoted to tech sales. So I think that for any listener, like if you find there's glimpses of like very unique skill that you have that you're putting to work in the world, that is your path, and you got to follow that,
Right. And sometimes the more niche, the better, and the more marketable it is that you're going to be. And once you find that, really hone in on that. And I know you've done a good job, Nick, really going to network events, really own that space, whatever space it is. It's all about selling yourself. You just don't think, okay, I got my dream job. The hard work just started then. And then you really got to dig in and keep marketing yourself to grow.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, this is important. I go to networking events, but there was a point where I pivoted and I said, I'm not going to go to events where I'm not going to actually put my career forward. Like there's booze being served and stuff. Like if you're getting drunk on a Tuesday and you're meeting random people, but then on Wednesday morning, you're kind of like be a step behind on your call. That wasn't a net positive for you to do. So with networking, I try to be a lot more targeted to the areas that I care about, where I can meet people that are, where it's a mutual relationship. I help them, they help me. It's not just like haphazard scattershot, any networking event, right? Like the same with your work, right? Like if you sat there throughout the day and you had 60 contracts to do, you have a plan for how to do those 60 contracts, right? There's a certain level, there's a certain priority certain ones get, no? So my question is just like, how do you prioritize your work?
Yeah, no, great question. And really it comes down to knowing my pipeline. So on average, I have about 20 to 25 deals at any given point in time. Knowing it well, knowing kind of what clients everything's going to be urgent for. Have to put to the forefront when we have a set closing deadline or any sort of deadline we have to meet, and really learn what the expectations are for a certain deal. That's really important when you're scoping the initial deal. What is the client's expectations? Of course, you always want to at minimum meet it, hopefully exceed it. And then making sure you're communicating, if there's certain delays in the process, communicating that throughout the stage of the deal. So there's no surprises, right? There's nothing worse than having a surprise. So, really seeing, without the life cycle of my deals, what takes priority on the forefront. I mean, I have a little tracker, but also really just digging in and understanding that the timeline is so important up front, is how I prioritize, and making sure that, nothing's a surprise to my clients, and then also nothing's a surprise to me.
Yeah. And we don't have to go into specific deals, but like how many back and forths are there generally with what you're doing? Are you sending, are we talking ballparks, 12 back and forths, can you finish it for Chase and, one or two? How do you get one of those 20 off your pipeline and into the next one?
Yeah. So on average, and because we have some data to retract it. So the life cycle on average is like 30 days for a deal to close. Sometimes it's limited back and forth. The parties are willing to just sign up basically our standard terms. Generally, that's not the case. Other times, multiple rounds of red line comments back and forth between, could be a client's counsel. We, with, the type of work I'm involved in, we have also other lenders involved. So it's the, what lender ABC will call them, their counsel is involved as well. And then, myself representing JP Morgan, reviewing these red lines back and forth. Sometimes there's multiple calls involved if there's certain sticking points over the contractual language. So it really does depend. But I would say on average about 30 days, lots of emails. When you get close to, when the deal is about to close, there could be, emails firing off late at night. But that's just kind of the nature of the work, kind of ebbs and flows depending on the closing deadlines.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you guys have data around how many days it takes to close and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I brought it up.
Yeah. There's reporting like back end data, which is very cool to see and to understand that, because, we want to make it as easy as possible, streamline it. What can we do for an efficiency standpoint to try and get these, deals closed faster? There's only so much we can control, of course, because it's not like we're not unilaterally the only party here. So there's other parties, but of course we want to try and speed things up as much as possible.
I brought it up because I remember with a couple of my deals as an account executive in sales, I get involved in the negotiation. And once you get to that point, it's you're sensing you're at the end zone. Like, and when I sell that deal, that's when I get paid. So I'm like, let's go.
let's get this done. Yeah. And that's a good point, Nate. So we not only do we get pressure from our clients, we also get a lot of pressure from our banking team. Because similar, to your point, you're on that more kind of the, the account side where you want this to close ASAP. And same thing with our treasury partners that I work with, because they're getting commission right off these deals and they want it to close as well. So we get that internal pressure. As well, especially end of year, right? You're trying to get that bonus, get that fat check. It's even more so, end of quarter, you'll see end of year that pressure starts turning up. So
I wanted to ask you about pressure and maybe how you deal with that. But first, kind of last thing on the contract and that back and forth. So I've been in a couple where there are certain sticking points, right? Like indemnity and warranty.
Yeah,
like
it's a huge one for us too.
Survival on termination, or even like small things like payment terms, right? Like net 45, net 60, probably not what you deal with in yours, but I think that there's an art, right, to negotiating what in the contract you can bend on and what you can't. And you might be the person who's the strict one saying, us here at Chase, like no chance you're touching that section, or you might say, we can't touch that section, but we, over here, we have a little more leeway, right? So maybe just like talk for a second about that art of negotiating what you can and what you can't, if you could.
Yeah. So what I always like to do, indemnity is a big point we see. So something like that, I will always offer alternative language. So there'll be specific items that our client or the third party lender is going to indemnify us for. I'm going to carve it out. So I'm not going to say you're going to cover us for everything, right? If there's ever pending litigation, you're going to cover our attorney fees, because a lot of times they don't want to cover the attorney fees. It gets very expensive. If there's a dispute between the parties, this ends up in court because of the contract. So I always will offer alternative language. I think I'm never going to just say no right off the bat. However, once I offer that alternative language, then I'm really going to start digging in, because I'm like, okay, I understand, you don't want to cover us for everything, but you can't just say, I don't want to cover you for anything. There's got to be some sort of middle ground. And then that's when I start digging in and pushing back once I offer that language.
Love it. So it's this idea of you offer alternative language, but then you're trying to get the party to understand that you're not going to bend all the way. Like,
right.
I'm coming. If I'm going to come halfway,
messaging that,
you got to meet me halfway or somewhere in the middle.
Right. And I'll be like, it's an accommodation. You always want to sell it. Like, okay, understand. This is our standard language.
Yeah.
You're not willing to agree to it. I'll offer an accommodation in this case, something like that.
Yeah. And the language is important. And I don't think this is like sales. I hear people saying like, oh, you're a slimy sales guy, or, you're so disingenuous, or you're really trying to persuade. Like, no, like I have management that says I can't do these things. So,
and same here. We have policies and internal policies and procedures that mandate, okay, there's certain things we have to have in this contract. So similar,
But like you truly are making an accommodation. And I hope that people see that and they respect it and they appreciate it, right? Like there's a way to negotiate in good faith and with grace, as opposed to just being like the hard ass. Like, no, we're not gonna
yeah.
You know what I mean? So
you never want to make it personal either. No matter how frustrated you are with a party, I think tone, and the hard thing is tone in emails. So another tactic I'll use, if I can see we're not getting anywhere, that all kind of parties are digging in, I will suggest a call. Sometimes I think calls are pointless if we don't get like the comments ahead of time. Some parties will be like, well, let's just jump on the phone and discuss this. No, I want to see what you actually want, negotiate it before I'm jumping on the phone.
Yeah.
But once you get to a sticking point, that's really where the art, I think, of negotiation comes in, and you really, I think, are able to verbalize it better over a phone call than email, especially if kind of tensions are rising. That's what I'll suggest a call at that point.
Yeah. I had a lawyer at my previous company offer just a strategy, and he's like, you need to accept, like not reject, but just like, hey, that's not where we want to go with this. But most importantly, counter propose. And it's similar to what you said, right? I'm going to make
alternative counter proposal. Exactly.
Yeah. It's not a talking point. Like at the next call, and this goes back to the deal cycle. How do you get it done in 30 days? Let's be as productive as possible with what we can send back and forth in an email, right? And make sure that when you come to this call, you understand where our position is, and even maybe some context around this is why, right? At my previous company, we sold location data, right? If someone drives into a lake with our location data and they die, it's a ridiculous situation, but we could potentially be liable with our map for any kind of damages.
To having that error.
Yeah. And so it's like, this is why our that limit is so high for us, right? And then they can understand your point a little better. So I think there's a whole art to this, but I think the takeaway that I learned is to create a counter proposal, write it in the comment section, or like you said, figure out a way to kind of like pigeonhole it. Let's park that here. Let's progress where we can. And then when there's sticking points on a call, this is where we're going to cover these 3 sticking points.
Yeah, right. Make it detailed on the call too. That's a good point. You don't want to just go in there with no agenda. You have to know what you're talking about and really drill down on those points.
Yeah, cool.
You're able to just your company really give you kind of leeway on negotiating some of these things, or you always have to work with like your in-house counsel?
Oh no. So I had an in-house counsel, and before the call we'd strategize, And during the call, he knew how far he could go. But of course, he wants to get deals done too. It was an awesome role because I mean, what I'm talking about right now, this is so like senior sales. This is like big boy stuff, you know? If I could do this, like hopefully I can do this at a startup or like my own company one day, right? But yeah, like it was never me going like scattershot. I had a guy behind me saying, okay, Nick understands what accounting needs and what operations needs and what our product team needs. I know, this is Scott I'm talking about. I know how far we can bend from a legal perspective, and I'm gonna back Nick up to the point that I can. But if there's ever a point where we just can't go any further, you know, I'm gonna present the legal context for why that exists in this contract and make sure that the customer understands it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Understood. Yeah, that's cool. You are touching on a lot of, you know, legal issues as well, it sounds like, in your role.
Yeah.
I mean, which makes sense from any sort of contract that you're
Yeah.
getting involved in. We'll touch on those.
At Microsoft, there are whole teams that do this, but going back to like the logistics thing, like if I do it, if I'm able to do it, I'm gonna grind and learn to do it, man.
Right. You rather own that. That's when it comes down to ownership, right? Instead of passing it off to someone else.
Yeah. But big companies, like, you know, what an amazing resource to have a team of lawyers behind you, right? Like I'm sure you guys have, if you guys need to get a specific deal closed, like that thing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You
got a whole army.
Over at the biggest bank in the world, right?
Yeah, we both work for some big companies, man.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I wanted to cover besides like just legal and like your path and everything. I know you're a family man, and I love that about you. I was raised Catholic. You know, I love my mom, my dad. My mom is one of 13 actually.
Wow.
Kind of curious, like when you deal with pressure, how do you lean on Kerry? Not specifically, but like how do you deal with pressure, and maybe what are your support mechanisms for that? I imagine family is one of them.
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, I'm, you know, Italian, you got the Catholic as well. Very close, you know, family connections, especially even extended family, my cousins who are in Chicago, things like that. But I think it's important to really just kind of whatever happened at work, no matter how frustrating it is, really just drop it as soon as. Now it's even tougher because we're working from home most of the time.
Yeah.
But as soon as you shut the computer down, or if you are in the office, as soon as you come back, just shut it down and just talk about anything but work. You know, and we got a dog. I mean, now, of course, now with Sienna, it's a lot easier because they're going to keep you busy too, and really just distract yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take a mental break, you're going to burn out, and you really need to, you know, lean on a support staff and enjoy that time outside of work.
Yeah.
To bring your A game when you're called, you know, to be working.
Yeah.
So yeah, really just, you know, we always make time to have dinner together, for instance. Kerry and I, that's really important. Doesn't matter, you know, maybe one of us has to work late one day, but we're still going to find time to sit down together and eat. We're not eating separately. So at least we still have time to catch up, hear how each other, you know, are doing. And that really helps because you kind of recharge the batteries. No matter how, you know, shitty that day was, you're going to go in the next day really feeling better at least and ready to tackle whatever you got to tackle.
Yeah. So you're actually close to the 20th episode of this podcast. And I asked something similar to everyone. It's like, how do you focus your day? How do you focus? How do you like recharge? And I think I heard a couple things there about like creating a complete delimitation between work and like your home life. Like we're going, like I'm going to talk about anything but work, right? But with my girlfriend now, like, how was your day? And of course it goes straight into work, right? Like
it's hard because work is such a fundamental part.
Yeah.
Right?
I think there's,
but it is important, I think, to still
go ahead.
Was that? Sorry.
You got it.
No, I was just saying, I think it is important, you know, to have that break. And I'm not saying I do it all the time. There's, you know, of course, nights we're talking about stuff at work, especially if something ridiculous happened or, you know, maybe a coworker really pissed you off. But I think it's also important to kind of unwind and talk about other things, so you're not thinking about it. Because if you're talking about work throughout the night, you're going to think about it when you're sleeping. You're not going to sleep as well. Your whole next day is going to be ruined, and it's just going to carry over, right?
Yeah.
So.
There was a point last week, and kind of vulnerable here, I got some negative feedback, and it wasn't like negative to the point where oh, you're doing so bad, you're gonna get fired. It was just like one tiny thing, but I just like kind of stewed on it. And
Right.
I took it, like you talked about earlier in the podcast, I took it personally. And I think when I did that, it didn't help me because I didn't understand what it was, make a plan and like execute the plan. You know what I mean? So I think that's super important to, like, if there's something at work that's hurting you, when you're sitting across from your wife at dinner, whatever that was is literally non-existent in that moment. You know what I mean, man? Like whatever tough party you're dealing with, negotiating with during the day, it's you and your wife and your dog and your kid. And I think that's like, there's a super important skill to like being able to turn off what you want to turn off and moving forward in the direction where it's like, this is my life. This is Ryan Lavalle outside of Ryan Lavalle, the ex title at Chase. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because you got to have that kind of other persona outside your work persona. And that's really important. Like, we have a good friend group in Chicago. You need that friends, you need the family, you need the support to really strive and be successful, and giving you that, motivation when you are, it's go time, it's game time, and you show up to work, okay, I got my team behind me, I got my supporters behind me, and you give everything you got, and you're not dwelling on past mistakes. It's huge.
Yeah. Does Kerry work from home too?
Yes. So her company's still fully remote. They weren't pre-pandemic. It's funny because we used to do like 2 days that we could work from home. And Kerry was like in office. Of course, if you have like doctor's appointments, things, you can work from home. But now her company is swung the totally opposite way, and they've been remote. I guess there's no plan really to go back at this point. I think eventually, probably at some point in 2022. But Chase has been, okay, we want you back since about July, around July 4th. They're like, okay, we want you in on a rotation schedule. So I'm in at least twice a week, and working from home the others, which I'm fine with. I think there's some good benefits of being in person, being able to collaborate while also having other, days to be at home to still get stuff done. That's a very, I guess, contentious topic these days, the work from home, and, more and more companies are delaying the work from home life. But yeah, Chase has been kind of very gung-ho on getting people, back. Of course, they allow exceptions. Like if there's a reason you can't be in, they're going to allow it. So, things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out next year.
I don't really have any statements on like what is right or wrong. I do think that this whole like situation is kind of here to stay, where people are going to start to push back on the 5-day from the office work week.
Right.
I do think that there's exceptions where people should work from home constantly or all the time, but just my perspective, I have complete autonomy to work from home every day. And I wish I could go to an office and collaborate with teammates. I recognize that. And I love your CEO.
You're probably missing that because it's been almost 2 years now, know. But.
And I get that I'm a sales guy, so I might have a bias toward like in person versus not. But whatever Jamie Dimon says about collaboration and being with your teammates, like I promise you, it's not for a middle manager to breathe down your neck. It has to do with you growing and building a cohesion as a team. We're humans, we're apes, like we're supposed to be with our people, and everything I do, whether it's my podcast or my call with my customer, my call with my manager, I mean, hell, even some people work out, like it comes through a screen because of what we're going through right now. And I think there's a better way. And I think that the word is like a hybrid way. When it makes sense to work out through a screen, do it. And when it makes sense to go to the local studio, do it. Right.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to say what's right or wrong, but there are some.
Has Microsoft come out with any guidance for next year yet on being in office or anything?
So we take a really conservative approach toward it. There was a point this year where I was planning to visit a customer, and it kind of got shot down just based on where we were in the pandemic. It was like kind of like early last spring before people were getting vaccinated and stuff. And I was vaccinated. But it was hard to understand that this is like bigger than me, and it's like better for everyone to to do that. I think other companies that maybe are smaller, that have like a family atmosphere, if all 12 people work from home, there's no chance they might get as much done as they need to, right? So I just think it depends on the company, depends on the management.
Culture,
Yeah. And there's something called the Great Resignation right now where employees are demanding more time, at home. If they're working for a place that's like, hey, you got to come in. It's like, well, I could pick the same amount for someone that won't. And like, I love when people are saying the specific quote about like, the greatest luxury is your time. It's so true. Like, can you imagine feeling like you had to be somewhere? Like at that point, do you really own your life? Like, and my grandpa, my dad would be like, what? Like the fact that Nick is saying this right now is like, that's not even fair, but that's where we are. It's our reality,
Totally different from 1950s, 1960s.
Yeah. The old, I walk 12 miles to school every day. Like, grandpa, really?
You work that 9 to 5 life, you show up and that was it. I mean, you have to do it. But luckily technology has advanced. Your company is a big part of that, where we have these luxuries now.
Yeah, that's part of what I sell. The dream of hybrid work, which is that if you're at home or, on a beach, that you can do just as much as being in the office.
Right.
But I just don't think that anything, and I think if you disagree with me, I would really challenge you. I don't think that anything really is the same as in-person collaboration or just in-person, let's go to Vegas once with your team for a sales celebration for a week. Guarantee you're in a better place than if you didn't do that trip and got the chance to meet people. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. That really allows you to, I think, recharge and really, after that, you're going to be feeling so good. Everyone's going to be pumped up. You can't get that kind of motivation anywhere else.
Yeah. This is all a tangent, but the reason I asked about work from home is like, how do you and Kerry, or how does anyone out there, curious how you're able to kind of coexist in one home? Like, do you have your computer set up in different bedrooms? How's noise?
Yeah, it's definitely, we live in a condo. It's not like we have a bunch of space. Living in the city makes it challenging, especially, during the pandemic we had dog and trying to balance him always wanting to go out. But, we do have an office. Generally, I'll be in the office, but like Kerry has important client calls, she'll come in there. And then we have a setup with a monitor and stuff at our kitchen table. So really balancing, our as much space as possible, to still be functional and really knowing, communicating with each other. Okay. If we got to prioritize, who's got calls at what time, if it's just internal calls that you're going to be on mute for most of it, then that's fine. Like I'll be out in the kitchen and Tito can be running around and barking, whatever. But if it's a really important client call, you're presenting, okay, take the office. You gotta do what you gotta do. So it's been challenging. I mean, that part for sure. But yeah, we really got in a groove. I mean, when it first happened, because we were all just like you, I'm sure it was just like sometime early March, like right around St. Patrick's Day, 2020. It's like, you're going to work most of the time and all of a sudden your company's like, nope, we're going to stop doing this. We're going to take it day by day, and you got to just start figuring it out. And I think that's been very cool to see how well companies have done, something that at minimum hasn't occurred in 100 years, right? Since the Great Flu epidemic of 1918, I think that has been so cool to see how companies and more importantly, individuals have adapted to something that we're probably not going to see. Well, hopefully, see again in our lifetimes. Just you figure it out. That's the only thing you can do. And then we really, within a few weeks or maybe even a little longer, we started getting in a groove then. So
yeah. So kind of in closing, let's talk about IU basketball. And let's talk about being degenerates into gambling.
Oh yeah.
So what do you think about the era of Woodson? Do you think we're going to be maybe like bubble team, maybe like lower seed? What are you predicting for this year?
I think long term, I'm very positive in Woody. Definitely just such a different feeling around the program with the dark Archie Miller days. So very, very positive. I mean, I I think we have a top 5 recruiting class for next year already. This year, I think there's going to be ups and downs. We haven't put together, it seems like, a full 40 minutes yet. Like we had a great first half against Wisconsin, and we blew a 20-point lead. Syracuse, bad first half, came back from 20 points. So, getting, I think, the players to fit into his system is going to be big. It's going to take some time. This year, I would expect us to at least be a bubble team. Like we need to, it's been a while since we've been in the tournament, which is crazy.
Yeah.
For Indiana basketball. I think the last time we were in, we beat Kentucky that year. Was that with Yogi Ferrell?
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been way too long.
I could have swore, I guess, yeah, because the maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, we had a couple really, really good players, but we just didn't make it. Like, there was an Ohio State game in the Big Ten tournament that we lost, and that would have put us in.
Like Romeo Langford, even that season he was here, we didn't make it. Jawan Morgan, we might have made it when he was freshman, but it's been a long time. Very unacceptable, of course, to the proud Indiana basketball brand. So we need to change that, my man.
One of my biggest sticking points is I will never celebrate the Watford for the win anniversary, because we didn't, in my opinion, like capitalize on that momentum. Maybe Crean always had X's and O's problems, but would Kentucky celebrate a game-winning shot? Would Duke do that? Would Kansas do that?
Well, you got to think how low the program was. They never been, like, Kentucky and Duke never been that low.
Yeah, right? But I just think that if we're going to put ourselves, I guess that's the difference. I think people now are not putting ourselves in that category. We won 5 championships.
Right.
The last one was 30 years ago. And I'm not ready to try to claim to my friend that went to Duke that we're even on that level, right? Like we're just not.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. I want to see us come back to that point. Immediately, you can see that with Woody versus Archie, just the energy, the spirit in the program went up immediately, like just so quick.
Getting Trace Jackson there's no chance he would have came back with Archie. He was 2 feet out the door to go pros. Maybe he would end up in the D League probably this year. But the fact he got him to stay, that was like the first big sign, like, okay, this guy can sell Indiana basketball.
Yeah. And dude, like the Syracuse game, Trace Jackson Davis is a man amongst boys down there. He is. He's like dunking on people, left hand dunking.
He's going to terrorize Big Ten for sure.
We got a killer, front court there. Man.
Race is really improved too. We definitely got to figure out a game to go to. Hopefully I know Northwestern, they play at Northwestern. So we got to look into some tickets. Got to see them live at least once.
For sure, man. Okay. Last question. Every person I talk to, I have a question for. Sometimes I do a would you rather. Sometimes I do like a fuck, marry, kill. With you, I'm going to ask a broad question. So I feel like you are up. Somehow you're up against Vegas. And I wanted to know generally.
Marginally, a little bit.
What are some of your strategies for sports betting that you find help you win?
Yeah. So each kind of sport, I have my own little tactics. So for example, like baseball, I'll really look at, it's so hard for a team to sweep another team. So in baseball, you have minimum usually 3 games. Sometimes you have a 4-game series. So if a good team, especially if it's a good team, loses the first 2, I'm hammering them that 3rd game, because the odds of them losing 3 in a row to the same team is very low. It takes a lot to beat a team 3 times, even if they're a bad team. So that's a strategy specifically for baseball that I like to use. And then really with baseball, looking at the starting pitching, because starting pitching is huge. So if I see a really good starting pitching matchup and like the Vegas odds aren't reflecting that as much, so it could be a bad team, but they have a really good pitcher going, I'm going to hammer that as well.
Nice.
NBA, like the back-to-back's huge. So taking a team, especially if they're coming off a big win, going against them that next night is, I think, kind of a really good method of, and it could be a good team too. It could be like the Bucks or the Jazz, but they just had a big win against another good team, and they're going on a back-to-back, going against them. I think it's been is a good strategy.
Anything with
lastly,
NFL or college?
Oh, sorry. What were you going to say?
Anything with NFL or with college basketball?
College basketball, I haven't, I guess I haven't refined a good strategy yeah, I think home court is huge, more so in college, much more so than NBA. Like if you're talking about college basketball. So I will look for some opportunities if, you have a team. Like I use a good example of this, like maybe not under Archie, but it's so hard to win in an assembly hall, right? So we might not have the best team, and on a even court, neutral court, we would lose to this team. But if they're coming to assembly, and I would take Indiana. The odds, of course, might not be as favorable because Vegas is going to buffer it for the home court advantage, but it's still going to be pretty good because this team's better than IU. But the fact that they're coming to the home court, would make me more inclined to pick that team. So I think home court's big. NFL, I really look at a team coming off a big win. And then going against them the following week for a big letdown game.
Interesting.
So like Colts, for instance, you guys play with tomorrow, Patriots.
Yeah.
And I can see you guys winning, against the Patriots. I think, there's a good chance that happens. But then I'm going to look to see who the Colts are going to play the next week, because coming off a big high like that, there's just maybe you let your guard down a lot of times, Maybe the Patriots are the one example, because I'm sure Belichick doesn't let them, but it's really hard for a team not to let their guard down a little bit after a big win like that.
Yeah.
So looking to see who they're playing next week, and potentially going against them. So kind of breaking it down by sport. How about you? I'm interested to hear your strategies.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm down on Vegas. I haven't lost my house or anything, but like a couple $1,000, but I always keep track of where I am. And like, I dream like the little engine that I'm going to somehow get back to net zero.
Right.
What I tend to do when I win a lot is I hit parlays, but that's what Vegas loves, because
you that's true.
One, which is very probable. You lose the ones you win too. What I don't do a lot of is do money lines, like money line on the dog. And I'm curious more, like when you consider let's say we beat the Patriots this weekend, the next game, would you do money line the other team, or would you do like spread? So most of the time I win, I'm going minus 110 odds, right?
Yeah.
Curious more about how you kind of pump the juice up and win at that point.
Yeah, I would take the money line in that point, because if I think a team's going to keep it close, like if they're an underdog, if I think they're going to keep it close, I'd rather get those juicy odds and just go money line because of the potential payout.
Yeah. I think that there's a reason why like DK will throw out these promotions like, Zach LaVine to score over 20 and he hits 19.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I'm a complete conspiracy theorist, but there's like NBA is just impossible.
Especially over unders with NBA. They seem to be, there's something fishy with them.
There's something at play where it's like, okay, you got the two highest scoring teams in the league and they missed the over under by like 1 point.
Yeah, like a point. Exactly.
Not really sure that
something's not right. The Vegas gods got their hands in it.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. I didn't expect to get quite so deep into the legal stuff. Really appreciate you, sharing more about your family life and like how you guys kind of coexist working from home. And man, what a great friendship we have. Really appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate you having me on. And for all your listeners, it's really be motivated, do what you love to do. Because if you're not liking doing what you're doing, it's going to show eventually. So get out there, listen to this man, Mr. Worley, on his podcast, because he's going to show you the light, baby.
Love it. Show him the light.
All right. Have a good weekend, brother.
All right. Mr. Lavalle. See you later.
Bye.
Bye, babe.